The snowstorm hit Mesa Creek like a wall of glass, slamming against rooftops and swallowing the narrow streets in white. Officer Mia Callahan gripped the steering wheel of her patrol SUV, eyes narrowed against the strobing blue-red lights cutting through the flurries. Beside her, Rex sat poised in the K9 seat, his amber eyes scanning the dark, like he understood every beat of her racing heart. Dispatch crackled over the radio. Unit 7, we've got movement inside the old grain mill, possible fentanyl stash. Proceed with caution. Mia clicked the mic. Copy that. Rex is with me. She knew the place, an abandoned building near the railroad, rumored to be a drop point for the local crew. But she hadn't expected this kind of weather, or the knot in her gut that refused to loosen. Rex shifted, his ears twitching, a low growl rumbling deep in his chest. The front of the mill loomed out of the storm, windows shattered, doors swinging loose on rusted hinges. Mia parked in shadow, cut the engine, and drew her Glock. Rex moved first, his body tense but steady, muscles rippling under his dark coat. They slipped through the doorway into dim light and damp concrete. Inside, the air was sharp with chemicals. Wooden crates lay smashed open, white powder dusting the floor. Mia's breath hitched when she saw a boot disappear behind a stack of pallets. She raised her gun. "Police! Show me your hands!" A shadow darted left. Mia tracked it, stepping over debris, Rex glued to her side. Then she heard it, a faint metallic click behind her. Rex spun before she could. A man lunged from the dark, knife flashing in his fist. Rex hit him midair, teeth sinking into the attacker's forearm. The man screamed, slamming back into the pallets. Mia swept in, but another figure rose from behind the crates with a shotgun. She dove, the blast chewing through wood inches from her head. Rex released the first man and charged the second. The shotgun fired again, echoing like thunder. Time stopped. Rex's body jerked, then rolled to the concrete. "No!" Mia's scream tore through the chaos. She fired twice, dropping the man with the shotgun. The first attacker scrambled to his feet, blood streaming from his arm, and bolted through a side door. Mia crawled to Rex, her hands shaking. Blood soaked into his thick fur near the shoulder. His eyes met hers, and for a moment there was no storm, no gunfire, just the bond they'd built through years of trust. His chest heaved once, twice, then stilled. She pressed her forehead to his neck. "Stay with me, buddy. Please, stay with me." Sirens wailed in the distance. Backup would be here in minutes, but it felt like a lifetime. Snow drifted through broken windows, landing on Rex's still body. Captain Roy Whitaker arrived first, coat flapping as he stormed inside. His eyes flicked to the dead suspect, then to Rex. He shook his head. "I'm sorry, Mia. He was a good dog." Mia didn't answer. She couldn't. Two officers moved to lift Rex, but she stopped them. "I'll do it," she whispered. She carried him out through the storm herself, every step burning into her memory. Later, after the ambulance left and the crime scene lights dimmed, Mia sat alone in her apartment. Rex's collar lay on the table, still warm from his fur. She turned it over in her hands, feeling the grooves of his nameplate. That's when she noticed it, a smear of dark residue near the clasp. Not blood. Grease? Or something else. A knock rattled her door. It was Ethan Brooks, her old partner turned airport security officer, snow clinging to his jacket. "Mia, I heard about Rex. I'm so sorry." She nodded, unable to speak. He glanced at the collar in her hand. "That's not from a bullet wound," he said quietly. "Who told you it was?" Her breath caught. "What are you saying?" Ethan lowered his voice. "I'm saying you'd better look deeper, and watch your back." She closed the door after he left, heart pounding. Outside, the storm began to ease, but inside her, something new was rising, an unease sharper than grief. An hour later, When she finally forced herself to rest, she thought she heard it, a single bark in the distance, carried through the night wind. Familiar. Alive. Mia shot upright, eyes wide, every nerve alight. "Rex?" she whispered into the dark. The room was silent, but her heart knew. Something wasn't over. The morning after the raid, the sun rose weakly over Mesa Creek, turning the icy streets into silver mirrors. Mia hadn't slept. The faint echo of that bark still haunted her ears, looping through her thoughts until every shadow in her apartment felt alive. She poured black coffee into a chipped mug, ignoring the ache in her chest, and stared at Rex's collar on the counter. Her phone buzzed. It was Captain Whitaker's number. "Mia, we're finalizing the report," he said, voice clipped, almost rehearsed. "I need you to come in and sign off." She stared at the steam rising from her coffee. "I'm not ready. We need closure. The press is already asking questions. The dog deserves honors, but we need to move quickly." "Right," she whispered, though the words tasted like ash. At headquarters, the air smelled of disinfectant and burnt coffee. Whitaker waited in the glass-walled conference room, his suit too crisp for someone who claimed to have raced from a crime scene. Beside him sat Chief Analyst Jenna Ruiz, scrolling through a tablet. Whitaker slid a form across the table. "Standard line of duty loss. You sign here, and we'll begin the memorial process." Mia scanned the document. Her pulse quickened. "This says Rex died from a single gunshot to the chest, but his wound—" Whitaker's expression hardened. "Mia, you were under fire. Trauma distorts memory." She met his eyes. "I was right there. He didn't go down from that shot. Something else happened." Jenna looked up, brows furrowing. "Captain, she has the right to ask—" Whitaker cut her off. "Sign it, officer." Mia pushed the form back. "Not until I see the autopsy." The silence that followed was heavy. Finally, Whitaker stood. "You're letting grief cloud your judgment. Take a few days off." As he walked out, Mia caught Jenna's eye. The analyst hesitated, then slid a slip of paper across the table. "If you really want answers, check the storage room in the basement. Third cabinet. You didn't hear it from me." By noon, Mia found herself in the archives, dust dancing in the fluorescent light. She opened the third cabinet, rifling through case files, until her hand brushed a padded envelope. Inside was a memory card labeled CAM-RAID-02. Her breath hitched. She tucked it into her jacket and left before anyone noticed. Back home, she plugged the card into her laptop. The video opened to the chaos of the mill, Rex's POV from his chest camera. Snow and flashing lights blurred together as he sprinted ahead, growl vibrating through the audio. Then Mia appeared on screen, shouting commands, the camera swinging wildly as Rex tackled the first attacker. Mia watched, jaw tight, until she saw something she hadn't before. A figure stepping out of the shadows, tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a Mesa Creek police jacket. He raised a tranquilizer gun, not a firearm. The dart hit Rex's flank just as the shotgun blast went off. Her heart pounded. She paused, rewound, zoomed in. The jacket bore a patch with the letters MCSD stitched in gold. And as the man turned slightly toward the camera, the dim light caught his face. It was Whitaker. Mia shoved her chair back, blood roaring in her ears. She paced the room, her fists clenched. Her mentor, the man who had pinned her badge after her first promotion, had shot Rex with a dart meant to take him alive. But why? A low, guttural noise broke her spiral. From the hallway, a bark. One bark. Then silence. Mia grabbed her sidearm and moved to the door. Another bark came, closer this time, not frantic but sharp and deliberate. Her breath caught as she stepped into the stairwell. At the bottom stood a boy, maybe 12, bundled in a torn hoodie, clutching something under his arm. His face was pale, eyes darting nervously. "Hey," Mia called softly, gun still at her side. "Are you lost?" The boy shook his head. "I found this near the river. He told me to bring it to you." He held out the object. A tactical whistle, dented but unmistakable. Rex's whistle. Mia crouched, reaching out slowly. "Who told you to bring this?" The boy's lips trembled. The big dog with the cut ear, he was limping. But he barked, twice, like he knew my name. Her heart slammed against her ribs. "Where?" The boy pointed toward the west end of town, near the old rail yard. "Back there. He waited until I took this. Then he ran." Mia gripped the whistle in her palm, feeling the groove from years of use. Rex's scent clung to it, faint but real. The boy stepped back, eyes wide. "Lady, that dog's supposed to be dead, isn't he?" Mia rose, adrenaline surging, grief twisting into raw determination. "Not anymore," she said. She didn't even grab her coat before heading out. The snow had stopped, but the cold bit at her cheeks as she ran toward her SUV. Somewhere out there, Rex was alive. Somewhere out there, justice was unraveling, and Mia Callahan was done playing by anyone's rules but her own. The wind cut through the rail yard like a knife, carrying the scent of rust, oil, and something sharper. Fear. Mia eased her SUV to a stop near an abandoned warehouse, her eyes scanning the broken fences and darkened windows. The whistle hung around her neck, warm against her skin despite the cold air. She tightened her grip on the steering wheel, forcing her heartbeat to slow. She stepped out, boots crunching against scattered gravel. The yard was silent except for the faint rattle of loose siding in the breeze. She crouched low, flashlight off, gun drawn. Every instinct screamed that she wasn't alone. A shadow moved between two derailed boxcars. Mia spun, training her weapon, but the figure ducked out of sight. Then, faint but unmistakable, came that sound. One bark, a deep, commanding note that froze her in place. "Rex," she whispered, her voice breaking. Another movement, closer this time. She pivoted, ready to fire, until a man's voice cut through the air. "Looking for something, Officer Callahan?" She straightened, jaw tightening. From the shadows emerged a figure she recognized instantly. Mark Dalton, a former detective who'd been discharged 2 years ago for evidence tampering. He was broader than she remembered, a jagged scar running from his temple to his jawline. He carried a rifle loosely in one hand, as if it were an extension of his arm. "Dalton," she said, leveling her weapon. "I thought you were out of state." He smirked. "That's what they wanted you to think." "Where is he?" Dalton tilted his head, amusement flashing in his eyes. "Ah, you mean your precious K9. I saw him. Hell of a survivor, but you really shouldn't be here." "Where is he?" she demanded, stepping closer. Dalton's smile faded. "You're in over your head, Mia. You think this is just about a dog? Rex got in the way of something bigger, something your old friend Whitaker built from the ground up." Her grip on the gun tightened. "He's alive, isn't he?" Dalton's gaze flicked over her shoulder. She spun just in time to catch movement, a flash of dark fur, a glint of amber eyes. Rex stepped from behind the rail car, limping but proud, tail low, ears sharp. His coat was matted with dirt and dried blood, but his presence was electric. "Rex," Mia breathed. The dog locked eyes with her, and for a heartbeat the world stilled. Then Dalton lifted his rifle. Mia dove, firing once, the shot sparking off metal. Dalton, cursed, taking cover. Rex lunged, despite his injuries, teeth bared. He hit Dalton's leg with the force of a freight train, dragging him to the ground. Dalton swung the rifle, striking Rex's shoulder. Rex yelped, a sound that cut through Mia's chest like glass. She charged forward, tackling Dalton before he could recover. They struggled in the gravel, fists and boots slamming into ribs and shoulders. Dalton clawed for his rifle, but Mia twisted his arm and heard the joint pop. He roared in pain, headbutting her hard enough to blur her vision. Rex snarled, dragging himself upright, and lunged again. His jaws clamped around Dalton's forearm, the rifle clattering to the ground. Dalton screamed, trying to shake him off. Mia grabbed the weapon, flipped it, and slammed the butt into Dalton's temple. He went still, groaning, blood streaming down his cheek. Mia dropped to her knees beside Rex. Her hands shook as she ran them over his battered body. His breathing was shallow but steady, his eyes locked on hers with unwavering focus. "You're okay," she whispered, voice breaking. "You held on." Rex let out a low, determined growl, as if telling her they weren't done yet. She tied Dalton's hands with a length of cord from her belt, then rifled through his jacket. Inside, she found a burner phone and a folded map. Lines were drawn from the rail yard to an address on the outskirts of Mesa Creek, a private kennel. Scrawled in the margin was a single word: transfer. Mia's stomach turned. She recognized that address. It was registered under Apex Tactical's regional training facility, a place she'd visited once for joint exercises. Dalton groaned, half-conscious. "You're too late. They're moving them. Tonight." Mia tightened the cord. "Who?" He coughed, smirking through bloodied lips. "The others. Not just your mutt. There's more. They don't survive long." Her mind raced. If Rex was alive, others might be too. Dogs taken from the Force, hidden, repurposed. Or worse. Rex shifted beside her, trying to stand. She steadied him, feeling the weight of his resilience like a pulse beneath her palm. "You're coming with me," she said softly, meeting his eyes. "We're not letting them take another step." Dalton laughed weakly. "You won't make it out alive." Mia rose, gripping her gun in one hand and Rex's leash in the other. "Watch me." She dragged Dalton into the back of her SUV, secured him with zip ties, and covered him with a tarp. Rex climbed in slowly, curling beside her, his head resting on her shoulder, as if grounding her in the storm that was coming. As she pulled out of the yard, the burner phone in Dalton's pocket vibrated. Mia snatched it up and answered without a word. A low voice came through. "Is the package ready for transport?" Mia stared out at the dark road ahead, her jaw set. "It's on its way," she said, keeping her tone flat. "Good," the voice replied. "No mistakes this time. Whitaker wants it clean." She ended the call and tossed the phone onto the passenger seat. The pieces were falling into place, and every one of them pointed to betrayal, running deeper than she had imagined. Rex shifted against her side, his breath warm and steady. For the first time since that night at the mill, Mia felt something sharp bloom in her chest. Not just grief, not just anger, but hope sharpened into resolve. She drove into the night, the whistle swinging from her neck, Rex's eyes fixed on the road ahead as if he already knew what waited for them. The fight wasn't over. It was only beginning. The storm clouds rolled over Mesa Creek as Mia drove along the narrow service road. The headlights cut through the darkness in thin white blades, glinting off Rex's amber eyes in the rearview mirror. He sat in the back seat, head high despite his injuries, watching the road with the same calm vigilance he had on patrol years ago. The kennel loomed ahead, a long stretch of chain-link fencing and floodlights buzzing against the night. The sign out front still read, "Apex Tactical Training," but there was nothing official about the way the security cameras swept the gate in slow, mechanical arcs. Mia pulled the SUV into the tree line and killed the lights. Dalton groaned faintly from the back, still bound, his cheeks swollen and stained with dried blood. She ignored him, scanning the perimeter through a pair of binoculars. 2 guards patrolled the yard, their silhouettes sharp against the lights. A black van sat idling near the side entrance, exhaust curling into the cold air. "You ready, boy?" she whispered. Rex's ears flicked, his gaze steady. He let out a low rumble, not a bark but a promise. Mia slid out of the SUV, weapon drawn. She kept low, moving from shadow to shadow until she reached a gap in the fence, hidden behind a stack of rusting barrels. She crouched and signaled softly with 2 fingers. Rex leapt from the back seat, landing with surprising grace for a dog that had nearly died 2 nights ago. He stayed tight to her leg, moving like a shadow, nose twitching as he tracked scents. Inside the fence, the air smelled of bleach, oil, and something metallic that set Mia's teeth on edge. She followed Rex past a row of empty pens. The concrete floor was slick, dotted with paw prints still wet. One pen held a torn collar stamped with the letters K917. Another contained a bloodied leash. Rex froze, ears pricking forward. He sniffed the air and growled low in his throat. Mia followed his gaze to a steel door at the far end of the hall. Light spilled from the gap at the bottom. She pushed it open a fraction and peered inside. A makeshift office stood beyond, walls lined with filing cabinets and crates marked with shipping labels. At the desk sat Captain Whitaker himself, his badge still pinned to his chest like a twisted joke. He was on the phone, his voice low but clear. Yes, the shipment leaves at dawn. No, Callahan won't be a problem. She thinks Rex died out there. Mia's breath caught. Her mind reeled. Whitaker, her former mentor, the man who trained her, was orchestrating this. She pushed the door open wider, weapon raised. Get your hands where I can see them. Whitaker didn't flinch. He set the phone down slowly and leaned back in his chair. Mia, I was wondering when you'd show up. Step away from the desk. She ordered, voice tight. You don't understand what you're walking into. His eyes flicked to Rex, standing tense at her side. That dog should have stayed buried. Rex growled, a deep warning that vibrated through the room. Whitaker stood, hands spread. You think you're here to save him? You don't know half of it. Those animals were never just patrol dogs. They were part of a program, something bigger than either of us. And Rex... He smiled coldly. Rex was our best experiment. Mia's grip tightened on her gun. You're lying. You saw the files, didn't you? Dogs with enhanced training, chemical conditioning, memory triggers. They weren't supposed to bond. But Rex, he chose you. That made him dangerous. The words hit like a blow. Mia's chest tightened. She looked down at Rex. He was still, eyes locked on Whitaker, tail rigid. Whitaker took a step closer. You can't stop this. Walk away, Mia. Take the dog and disappear. Pretend none of this ever happened. Behind him, a door creaked open. Mia glimpsed 2 men in tactical gear, rifles raised. They moved fast, sweeping in from the storage room. Mia fired first, dropping one with a shot to the shoulder. Rex lunged at the second, teeth flashing, slamming into his leg and dragging him down with a snarl that rattled the air. The man screamed, struggling to aim his weapon as Rex ripped the rifle from his grip. Whitaker dove for the desk drawer. Mia fired again, the bullet splintering the wood inches from his hand. Don't, she shouted. He froze, then raised his hands slowly. You really think you can stop this by yourself? Mia backed toward the door, keeping her weapon trained on him. Rex stood between her and the fallen guard, blood staining his fur but his stance unshaken. We're done here, she said. Whitaker's voice was calm, too calm. Check your SUV before you leave. The words chilled her. She dragged Rex out, scanning the hallway. They slipped through the gap in the fence and sprinted for the SUV. When she flung the back door open, her stomach dropped. Dalton was gone. The ropes lay shredded on the seat, a smear of blood trailing off into the dark. On the dashboard sat a folded note. She snatched it up, reading the blocky print aloud. You're too late. Mesa Creek was just a decoy. Try the quarry if you want to save the rest. Rex let out a sharp, piercing bark, the sound of urgency, not fear. Mia's pulse hammered as she looked out into the night. The quarry was 20 miles away, deep in the old mining fields. Whitaker had set her up, drawn her here while the real transfer happened elsewhere. She gripped Rex's collar, feeling the steady thrum of his heartbeat beneath her hand. "Not tonight," she said softly. "We're not losing another one." Rex met her gaze, ears forward, ready. She started the engine and gunned it toward the dark horizon, the storm breaking overhead, lightning flashing against the windshield as they tore down the road toward the next fight. The road to the quarry was a narrow ribbon cutting through the dark woods. Mia gripped the steering wheel so tightly her knuckles ached, eyes fixed on the glowing dash clock. Midnight was closing in. The storm had eased, but the fog was thick, wrapping the hills in a grey shroud. Rex sat upright in the back, muscles tense, nose pressed against the crack of the window, as if memorizing every scent rushing past. The headlights swung over a faded sign half hidden by weeds, the old sycamore quarry. Mia slowed and killed the engine a quarter-mile out. The night was silent except for the low hiss of the wind through pines. She stepped out, weapon ready, heart hammering. Rex followed, tail low, every movement precise. He was a shadow at her side, eyes sharp, ears twitching to catch every sound. Ahead, faint lights flickered near the quarry pit. She crouched behind a stack of old concrete barriers and peered through a gap. A black truck idled near the edge, its cargo bay open. Two men in heavy jackets carried crates from a storage shed into the truck. Another man, taller, stood by the driver's door, smoking a cigarette. She recognized him instantly. Dalton. His lip was split, but he moved with cold purpose, giving orders in a low voice. Mia's pulse quickened. He wasn't just a pawn, he was in on it. He had let her think he was just bait in Whitaker's game, but here he was, leading the operation. Rex let out a faint growl, barely audible, eyes locked on Dalton. Mia placed a hand on Rex's shoulder. "Easy," she whispered. But Rex wasn't tense from anger. His body was angled towards the shed, nose twitching. Mia followed his gaze. Through a crack in the shed door, she saw movement. A flicker of pale light and the glint of an eye. Then another. She crept closer, keeping low, until she could peer through. Her breath caught. Inside were cages, stacked in rows, each holding a dog. German shepherds, Malinois, even a bloodhound. Some whined softly, others lay still, drugged or exhausted. Tags hung from their collars marked with unit numbers she didn't recognize. She pulled back, heart pounding. They weren't just moving evidence, they were moving living, breathing partners. And if the truck rolled out, they'd disappear forever. Behind her, gravel crunched. Mia spun, gun raised. A flashlight beam swept across her face and froze. A figure stepped into view. It wasn't Dalton or one of his men. It was Sheriff Alan Briggs, her old mentor, from training academy days, grey hair now flecked with rain, badge pinned crookedly to his vest. He lifted both hands slowly. "Mia," he said quietly, "put the gun down." She didn't lower it. "You're with them." "I'm trying to stop this." Briggs replied, voice low. "Whitaker called me off the record. I came to see for myself." "Then why not call for backup?" she hissed. He shook his head. "There's no time, and half the department's in Whitaker's pocket. We have to act now." Rex moved between them, tail stiff, eyes darting from Mia to Briggs. He didn't growl, just watched, weighing the tension like a living gauge of truth. Briggs held his ground, gaze steady. Mia lowered the gun slightly but kept her finger near the trigger. "You help me get those dogs out," she said, "or we're done talking." Briggs nodded once. "What's the plan?" Before Mia could answer, a gunshot split the night. She dropped to the ground as a bullet shattered the concrete barrier inches from her head. Rex lunged sideways, barking furiously, and Mia saw the shooter in the shadows near the shed. Dalton had seen them. "Go!" Mia shouted. She bolted toward the shed, Rex sprinting ahead, Briggs covering their flank with his sidearm. Dalton fired again, but Rex was already moving, a streak of muscle and instinct. He slammed into Dalton's leg, teeth sinking into his arm as the rifle clattered to the gravel. Dalton screamed and swung at Rex with the butt of the rifle, but Rex twisted, dodged, and lunged again, knocking him off balance. Mia kicked the shed door open. The dogs inside erupted in a chorus of barks and whimpers. She pulled her knife and cut the first cage open, then the next. One by one, the dogs leapt out, staggering but alive. Rex herded them instinctively, nudging a younger shepherd toward the open door, then circling back to check the others. Briggs appeared in the doorway, panting. "Truck's starting!" he shouted. Mia grabbed a collar from one of the crates, ripped it open, and found a set of keys. She tossed them to Briggs. "Get them out of here. I'll handle Dalton." Outside, the truck roared to life, tires spinning on gravel. Dalton scrambled to his feet, blood running down his arm. He yanked a pistol from his belt and fired at Mia. The bullet tore through her jacket sleeve, burning her skin. She fired back, striking the truck's side mirror, then ducked behind the shed as Dalton advanced. Rex leapt from the shadows, crashing into Dalton with such force they both tumbled to the ground. Dalton slammed a fist into Rex's ribs, but Rex held on, growling deep and low until Mia closed the distance and drove the butt of her pistol into Dalton's temple. He collapsed, groaning, hands twitching. The truck squealed as Briggs jumped into the cab and threw it into reverse, blocking the road. The freed dogs ran alongside Rex, scattering into the trees or circling back to Mia as if waiting for orders. Mia knelt beside Rex, running her hands over his fur. "You okay?" she whispered. Rex's breathing was heavy, but his eyes were bright, alive with a ferocity that made her chest tighten. He gave a short, sharp bark and nudged her hand, then turned to stand guard over Dalton, lips curled in a low, warning snarl. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer. Mia looked to Briggs, who was helping the last of the dogs into the truck bed. "We have to move," he said. She nodded, grabbing Dalton's wrist and cuffing him to a steel post near the shed. "Let them find him," she said. "He's not going anywhere." As they loaded the remaining dogs, Mia glanced back at Rex. He stood proud and unshaken among the freed animals, tail raised, watching the horizon. For a moment, she felt a surge of hope she hadn't felt in years. They had won a battle tonight, but the war was still ahead. She climbed into the truck, Rex bounding up beside her, and Briggs floored the gas, the headlights cutting through the dark as they raced away from the quarry, away from the blood and the betrayal, and toward whatever waited beyond the next turn in the road. Rex leaned against her leg, steady as a heartbeat, and Mia knew with absolute certainty they were not done yet. The safe house on the edge of Clearwater Bay looked like any other abandoned ranger station, its windows boarded up, roof patched with sheets of tin. But inside, the single light bulb hummed above a table covered in maps, hard drives, and the ledger Briggs had grabbed from the shed. Mia sat with her back to the door, sleeves rolled, her arm freshly bandaged. Rex lay at her feet, ears perked, eyes watching every shadow that moved. His ribs rose and fell steadily, but Mia could still feel the vibration of his earlier growls in her hand. Briggs paced near the window, rifle leaning against the wall. "You know Whitaker's not going to let this slide," he said quietly. "Dalton's small fry. If he talks, it's over for them." Mia didn't look up. She scrolled through the ledger pages, scanning names, dates, and unit numbers. "If Dalton's alive by morning," she said, voice flat, "Whitaker will cut him loose before we even get a confession." Briggs stopped pacing. You think someone's coming for him tonight? They'll either try to kill him, Mia said, finally looking up, or take him back. Either way, we need more than a single thug in cuffs. We need proof they can't bury. Rex suddenly lifted his head, ears tilting towards the door. A low rumble started in his chest. Mia's hand went to her sidearm instinctively. "What is it, boy?" she whispered. Outside, tires crunched over gravel. Headlights swept across the boarded windows. Briggs cursed under his breath and killed the light. They froze in the dark, only the sound of Rex's steady breathing grounding them. Then a voice outside, calm and familiar, called out. "Mia Keller, Sheriff Briggs, this is Deputy Carol Hart. Let me in." Briggs frowned. "Carol's solid. Been with the department 10 years. Mia didn't move. "Then why's she here at 2 in the morning without calling ahead?" She motioned Briggs to stay quiet. Rex crept toward the door, nose twitching, tail stiff. Then the sound of metal on metal, a silencer being screwed on. Mia dove, pulling Briggs down as the first shots ripped through the door. Splinters flew across the room. Rex leapt sideways, narrowly avoiding a bullet that buried itself in the wall. Briggs rolled behind the table and returned fire through a crack in the boards. Screams erupted outside. Mia grabbed the hard drives, shoving them into her pack. "We're burned," she shouted. She pushed the back door open, motioning for Rex. He bolted through first, scanning the shadows, and growled sharply, signaling clear. They ran through the brush, feet crunching over frost. Behind them, shouts rose, flashlights sweeping, more gunfire snapping through the cold air. Briggs was slower, older, and Mia grabbed his sleeve to pull him along. Rex darted ahead, then backtracked, barking twice, urging them faster. They burst onto a service road where an old pickup waited under a tarp. Mia had hidden it days ago for emergencies. Briggs ripped the tarp free while Mia threw the pack in the cab. Rex jumped into the passenger side, standing with his paws on the dash, scanning the dark like a sentinel. Mia slammed the truck into gear as bullets rattled against the rear bumper. They tore down the road, engine roaring. "Carol?" Briggs panted, gripping the dash. "She was one of ours. She was bought," Mia said, eyes hard on the road. "And now we know how deep this goes." Rex barked once, sharp and urgent. Mia glanced in the rear view. A black SUV was gaining, headlights off, moving like a predator in the dark. She jerked the wheel, throwing the truck onto a narrow deer trail through the trees. Branches whipped at the windshield. Briggs braced himself, muttering a prayer under his breath. The SUV followed, tires shrieking against dirt. Mia swerved around a fallen log, felt the truck shudder, then straighten. Ahead, the trail split. She took the left path, hoping the old bridge was still intact. Rex's eyes stayed locked on the mirror, body tense. A gunshot cracked from the SUV, the rear view shattered. Mia ducked instinctively, heart racing. Briggs raised his rifle out the window and fired back. The SUV swerved but didn't stop. "Almost there," Mia shouted. The bridge loomed ahead, a narrow span over a gully. She hit the gas. The truck bounced onto the wooden planks. Halfway across, the boards creaked ominously, but held. She glanced back just in time to see the SUV hit the bridge at full speed, and the left tire punched through a rotten beam. The vehicle lurched, skidded sideways, and slammed against the railing. One more board snapped. The SUV flipped, tumbling into the ravine with a deafening crash. Mia didn't slow until they were miles away, hidden beneath the canopy of an old grove. She killed the engine, chest heaving. For a long moment, none of them spoke. Then Briggs let out a low, bitter laugh. "You always did have a flair for chaos." Mia turned to Rex, stroking his head gently. "You saved us, boy," she whispered. Rex pressed his muzzle against her arm, tail wagging once before he settled again, eyes still scanning the darkness as if expecting another attack. Briggs climbed out to scout the perimeter while Mia opened the ledger again under a flashlight. Her fingers traced a name circled in red ink. Whitaker. A note beside it read, "Final shipment through Clearwater docks. Tuesday night." Mia's stomach clenched. "They're moving everything in 2 days," she murmured. She looked at Rex. His ears twitched at her voice, eyes bright and ready. She felt the weight of what lay ahead, but also the steady, unwavering presence beside her. For the first time in months, a spark of resolve burned clear. "We're not running anymore," she said softly. "We take them down next." Rex gave a low, determined bark, as if he understood every word. And in that dark grove, bruised and hunted but alive, Mia knew they were far from finished. The morning fog rolled off Clearwater Bay like steam from a boiling kettle. Mia sat on the tailgate of the pickup, eyes locked on the map spread across her knees. Briggs leaned against a nearby pine, sipping stale coffee, his eyes darting every so often to Rex, who was pacing a slow circle around the truck, nose to the ground. Every muscle in the German shepherd's frame seemed coiled and ready, as if he could sense what they were planning. "They'll move at night," Briggs said quietly. "No port records, no manifest. They'll load straight from the dock to whatever ship Whitaker's got waiting." Mia tapped the map. "Here, the old cannery road. It's the only access that isn't monitored by city cameras. We'll need to be in position before they even know we're onto them." Briggs squinted at the paper. "We still don't have backup. You're betting everything on a dog, a ledger, and your instincts." Mia folded the map, stood, and looked him dead in the eye. "That dog saved both our lives twice. He's earned more trust than half the badge wearers in this county." Rex stopped his pacing, ears snapping forward. A low growl rose in his throat. Mia froze, scanning the tree line. At first there was nothing but fog and dripping leaves. Then came the sound of footsteps, careful but fast, crunching over twigs. Briggs lifted his rifle, but Mia shook her head. "Wait." A figure stumbled out of the mist, jacket torn, face pale and slick with blood. It was Deputy Carol Hart, the same woman who'd fired through their door hours ago. She collapsed to her knees in front of them, clutching her side. "Please, don't shoot," she gasped. "They're coming for me too." Mia's hand hovered near her holster. "You sold us out." Carol shook her head frantically, tears mixing with blood on her cheek. "I didn't have a choice. Whitaker's men, they threatened my sister. I was supposed to lead you into a trap. But when they shot at me after you escaped, I knew I was next." Rex approached her slowly, ears back, tail low but steady. He sniffed her boots, then growled again. Deeper this time. Mia crouched in front of Carol. "Why come here? Why not run?" Carol's eyes darted to the ledger in Mia's hand. "Because I know where they're staging. They're not just moving drugs. They've got kids in those trucks, witnesses, things they don't want anyone to see." Briggs swore under his breath. "You're telling me this is bigger than fentanyl?" Carol nodded, shaking uncontrollably. "They're using the docks as a cover. Whitaker's been laundering through a private shipping firm. Tonight's run. It's not just product." Mia felt the air leave her lungs. For a second, the world narrowed to the beat of her own heart and the steady weight of Rex's gaze on her. Then she stood, jaw set. "You're going to show us." Carol's eyes widened. "I can't. They'll kill me." Mia leaned closer. "You've already picked a side. Now finish what you started." Before Carol could answer, Rex spun toward the tree line, hackles raised. This time, Mia didn't wait. "Down!" she shouted, grabbing Briggs and dropping flat as a shot rang out. Carol screamed as a second bullet ripped through the air and struck the truck's door with a metallic thud. Briggs returned fire blindly while Mia dragged Carol behind a fallen log. Rex shot into the trees with a snarl, a streak of muscle and fury. Another gunshot echoed, followed by a human cry cut short. Then silence. Mia gripped her pistol tighter, every nerve screaming. She was about to move when Rex emerged, jaws bloody, limping but alive. He dropped something at Mia's feet, a rifle magazine, torn free from the shooter's weapon. He growled once, low and guttural, then licked at his own foreleg where a shallow graze bled through his fur. Mia knelt, hands trembling as she checked his leg. "You did good, boy," she whispered. Rex's eyes met hers, unwavering, as if to say there was no time for thanks. Carol clutched Mia's sleeve. "There's more. 2 vehicles, south entrance to the docks, 8 o'clock tonight. That's when they'll move." Briggs reloaded his rifle, face grim. "Then we set the trap before they set theirs." Mia helped Carol into the truck, Rex leaping in beside her, pressing his body against Carol's trembling frame like he could steady her with sheer presence. Mia slammed the door and started the engine. As they drove toward the coast, the fog began to lift, revealing the grey waters of the bay beyond. The road ahead was dangerous, maybe impossible, but Mia felt a strange calm settle over her. She glanced at Rex, who sat tall, eyes on the horizon. "Tonight," she murmured, half to herself, half to the dog. "We finish this." Rex gave a single sharp bark, the sound cutting through the morning like a promise. And for the first time since this nightmare began, Mia felt hope tighten in her chest. Not a gentle hope, but a fierce, burning one. Tonight, justice would not wait. Night had fallen over Clearwater Bay, the air thick with salt and the hum of distant machinery. Mia crouched behind a stack of rusted cargo containers, the glow from the dock's floodlights painting her face in harsh gold and shadow. Briggs checked the chamber of his rifle one last time, his hand steady despite the tension vibrating through the air. Beside Mia, Rex stood rigid, his ears pricked, tail stiff, eyes cutting through the dark like 2 shards of amber fire. Carol sat in the back of the truck with her head down, still trembling but resolved. She had insisted on coming, knowing the layout better than anyone. 2 trucks, both marked as seafood distribution. She whispered, her voice barely audible over the waves slapping against the pier. "One takes the crates, the other, that's where they keep them, the ones who saw too much." Mia's jaw tightened. She brushed her fingers over Rex's head. His fur was warm under her palm, his steady breathing anchoring her. "When I move, you stay with Briggs," Mia said softly. "You hear me, Rex? Stay." Rex huffed, a low sound deep in his chest. His eyes never left hers, and for a heartbeat, she could feel his tension as if it were her own. She knew he would follow her anywhere, even into fire. She hated herself for asking him to wait. The first truck's engine roared to life, and shadows moved along the dock. Mia peeked around the corner and froze. Leading the convoy was a man she thought she would never see again. Sheriff Whitaker himself, his badge pinned over a black tactical vest, moving like a man who knew he owned the night. The sight hit Mia like a punch. All this time she thought he was orchestrating from a distance. But here he was, boots on the ground, directing his men like a general. Briggs cursed under his breath. "That son of a—" Mia cut him off with a sharp gesture. "We hold until they load." She hissed. "We need them caught in the act." Then something happened that made her blood run cold. A second figure stepped out from the shadows, tall, lean, moving with quiet authority. For a split second, she didn't recognize him. Then the dock lights caught his face. Agent Mark Rains, the federal liaison who had sworn he'd help expose the corruption. Mia's stomach twisted. He clasped Whitaker's hand in a firm shake, laughing like old friends. Briggs looked stunned. "You've got to be kidding me. Rains, he's FBI." "Not tonight," Mia whispered. "Not anymore." The trucks rolled closer, tires squealing on the damp asphalt. One of Whitaker's men opened the back of the second truck. Mia's breath hitched when she saw movement inside, small shapes huddled together, eyes wide and terrified. Witnesses, just as Carol said. Children too young to understand why they were there, but old enough to be afraid. Rex growled, low and furious, a sound that rippled through the night like a storm warning. Mia felt his muscles quiver against her leg. He wanted to move. So did she. She didn't wait for a better chance. "Briggs," she whispered. "Now." Briggs opened fire, a single shot cracking through the night. The bullet struck the floodlight above, shattering it in a burst of sparks. Darkness swallowed the dock. Chaos erupted as Whitaker's men shouted and scrambled. Mia sprinted forward, Rex leaping beside her faster than she thought possible. She fired at a guard reaching for his weapon, dropping him with a single shot. Briggs laid cover fire, bullets zipping past as the trucks roared in panic. Rex darted ahead, launching himself at a man swinging a rifle toward Mia. The impact was brutal, knocking the man flat. Rex clamped down on his arm, growling, refusing to let go even as the man screamed. Mia rushed past, pulling open the back of the second truck. Inside, the children stared at her with hollow eyes. "It's okay," she said quickly, voice shaking. "You're safe now. Come on, hurry." One boy didn't move, frozen in fear. Rex, blood still on his muzzle, stepped inside and nudged the boy gently with his nose, whining softly. The boy's lip trembled. He reached out a shaking hand and Rex licked it, tail giving a single wag. Then, as if by magic, the boy crawled forward, gripping Rex's fur like a lifeline. Mia heard tires squeal again and turned just in time to see Whitaker climbing into the cab of the first truck. "Briggs!" she shouted. "He's getting away." Briggs swore and fired, shattering the side mirror, but Whitaker floored the accelerator, barreling toward the dock gate. Mia grabbed a discarded flare gun and fired at the truck. The flare arced through the night, landing in the back of the vehicle. Flames erupted, licking at the canvas cover. Whitaker swerved, lost control, and slammed into a stack of steel containers. The impact shook the ground, and the truck burst into a fireball. For a heartbeat, the dock was silent, except for the crackle of fire and the cries of freed children. Then Rex barked sharply, spinning toward the shadows. Mia followed his gaze and saw Rains fleeing toward the waterfront, clutching something in his hand. A hard drive, maybe, or evidence that could undo everything they'd fought for. Mia sprinted after him, Rex at her side. Rains dove onto a small speedboat, cutting the line and starting the engine. The boat roared to life, pulling away from the dock. Mia raised her gun, but Rex leapt ahead, bounding onto the edge of the boat before it could fully drift free. Rains spun, eyes wide, and swung a crowbar. Rex dodged, teeth bared, lunging for his arm. The crowbar slipped, clattering into the water. Mia jumped, grabbing the edge of the boat, and hauled herself aboard. Rains swung wildly, but Mia tackled him, fists flying. The boat rocked violently. Rex circled, growling, ready to strike if Rains got the upper hand. The agent hissed, "You think this ends here? You think you can stop all of us?" Mia slammed him against the deck, pinning him. "No," she spat, "but we're starting tonight." Rex lunged, seizing Rains's wrist, forcing him to drop the drive. Mia snatched it, shoving it into her jacket. Sirens wailed in the distance, real backup this time, drawn by the explosion. Rains sagged in defeat as Mia cuffed him with her own restraints. Rex sat beside her, chest heaving, eyes bright with adrenaline and triumph. Mia reached down, gripping his scruff. "Good boy, Rex," she whispered. "You're not just a survivor. You're our justice." As the boat circled back toward the burning docks, the night was alive with flashing lights and the sound of people finally being saved. Mia looked at Rex and felt a fierce pride bloom in her chest. Whatever came next, they had turned the tide. Tonight, silence had been broken. Tonight, justice had a heartbeat and 4 legs. The hospital in Clearwater Bay smelled of disinfectant and burnt coffee. Mia sat in the hallway with her head in her hands, Rex lying pressed against her boots. His chest rose and fell steadily, but his eyes stayed open, scanning the corridor like a soldier refusing to stand down. Across from them, Briggs leaned against the wall, arms crossed, blood crusted on his temple where shrapnel had grazed him. They hadn't spoken much since the raid. There hadn't been time. A uniformed officer hurried down the hall, whispering into her radio, and Mia caught fragments. Transport secured, FBI en route, Whitaker confirmed dead in the crash. The words felt hollow. Justice wasn't a single man going down. It was proof, evidence, something that would hold up when the cameras and the lawyers came knocking. The hard drive sat in Mia's pocket, its weight a constant reminder. Carol was inside the ICU giving a statement to a federal marshal. The kids they'd rescued were being tended to by medics. For a second, Mia allowed herself to breathe. Then she felt Rex stiffen. His ears pricked, his head turning toward the far end of the corridor. "What is it, boy?" Mia whispered. Rex stood, tail straight, eyes locked on the elevator doors. A soft chime echoed, and the doors slid open. A man stepped out in plain clothes, carrying a bouquet of flowers. He walked slowly, too slowly, eyes darting. Mia's gut clenched. She'd been around too many undercover drops not to recognize it. The feigned calm, the way his hand stayed near his jacket pocket. Briggs straightened. "You know him?" "No," Mia said, already moving. The man spotted them, and for a split second his expression froze. Then he turned, on his heel, and bolted down a side corridor. Mia sprinted after him, Rex launching forward with a snarl that echoed off the tile walls. The man shoved through a pair of double doors, setting off an alarm. Nurses screamed as trays of instruments crashed to the floor. Mia closed in, her boots hammering against the linoleum. The man pulled a pistol from his jacket, but before he could aim, Rex hurled himself into his side, knocking him into a supply cart. The gun skidded across the floor. Mia dove, sliding across the tiles, and grabbed it. The man scrambled up, swinging a fist that caught Mia on the cheekbone. Pain flared white-hot. She stumbled back. Briggs arrived, tackling the man hard enough to rattle the walls. They grappled, crashing through a row of gurneys. Rex darted in, clamping onto the man's arm again, jerking him down. The stranger screamed, then ripped a second weapon from an ankle holster. Mia fired first. The shot hit the tile an inch from his hand, making him freeze. "Drop it!" she shouted, her voice cracking with rage. The man's eyes narrowed. "You think Whitaker was the top? You don't know how deep this goes." Briggs yanked him to his feet, wrenching his arms behind him. "We know enough to bury you," he growled. The man laughed, blood on his teeth. "Then why aren't you dead yet?" Mia felt a chill run down her spine. There was more. This was just one head of the Hydra. But right now, they had to survive. Sirens blared outside, growing louder. Uniformed officers stormed the hall, taking custody of the man. Mia kept her gun trained on him until they dragged him away. Her cheek throbbed, but she barely noticed. She knelt beside Rex, running her hands through his fur. He was panting, adrenaline still surging, but he looked up at her with that steady, unwavering gaze. "You saved me again," she whispered, her voice breaking. Rex licked her hand, tail giving one tired wag. Briggs crouched beside them, breathing hard. "You see the way he moved? He knew before we did." Mia nodded, still staring at Rex. He always knows. An hour later, they were in a secure briefing room at the precinct, the hard drive finally decrypted. On the screen, grainy footage played. Whitaker in a dim warehouse, handing over cash to a man in a suit. Behind them, crates were stacked high, marked as construction supplies, but when one was pried open, bricks of fentanyl gleamed under the flashlight. And in the corner, restrained in a cage, was another K9, younger, trembling, its collar marked with the same Apex logo they'd seen before. Briggs cursed under his breath. How many of them are out there? Mia swallowed hard. Too many. A soft sound drew their attention. Rex was standing in the corner, nose to the air, tail stiff. He paced to the far wall, then stopped and stared at a framed precinct photo. Mia walked over, frowning. "What is it, Rex?" She lifted the frame. Behind it, taped to the wall, was a small envelope, yellowed and creased. Inside was a single Polaroid, old but clear. It showed Whitaker and Rains shaking hands years ago, in front of the very same dock where everything began. And in the background, half hidden, stood another man, a face Mia knew too well. Her breath caught. "Captain Harlow," she whispered. The retired captain who had helped train Rex, the one everyone swore had moved to Florida years ago. But here he was, smiling in the shadows, part of it all. Briggs stared at the photo. "You've got to be kidding me." Mia's fists clenched. "He taught me everything I know," she said softly, rage building under her words. "And he's been selling us out from the start." Rex barked once, sharp and decisive, as if he understood exactly what they'd just uncovered. Mia tucked the photo into her jacket, her mind already racing ahead. The battle wasn't over. Whitaker was dead, Rains in custody. But Harlow was still out there, still moving pieces in the dark. Mia looked at Rex, feeling that same current of trust that had carried her through every gunfight, every betrayal. "Looks like we're not done yet, partner," she said. Rex wagged his tail, ready, unshaken. Outside, the storm that had threatened all night finally broke, rain hammering against the windows. But inside the briefing room, Mia felt something she hadn't felt in years, a fire that refused to die. The truth was spreading, the rot was exposed, and they were just getting started. Rex moved to her side, pressing his weight against her leg, steady as a heartbeat. She rested a hand on his head and whispered, "We're coming for him, Rex. And this time, we finish it." The storm had passed, but the sky over Clearwater Bay was still bruised with streaks of grey. Mia stood at the edge of the old rail yard, the smell of rust and wet earth thick in the air. Rex crouched beside her, ears pricked, every muscle alive. Ahead, hidden among derelict boxcars, a black SUV idled, its headlights dimmed. Briggs knelt behind a stack of pallets, rifle ready, his eyes locked on Mia. "This is it," Briggs whispered. "Harlow runs. We lose him for good." Mia tightened her grip on the pistol, her jaw set. "He's not running." A shadow moved near the SUV, broad shoulders, a familiar gait. Captain Harlow stepped into view, dressed in civilian black, but carrying himself with the same confidence he had back in training days. He scanned the yard, then looked directly toward Mia's position, as if he already knew she was there. "You shouldn't have come, Mia," he called, his voice steady, cold. "You could have stayed blind and lived a quiet life." Mia rose slowly from cover, gun raised, stepping into the open. "And let you keep killing good dogs, good people. That's not who I am." Harlow chuckled, shaking his head. "You always had that righteous streak, but you don't understand the kind of money on the table." He gestured towards the SUV. "You think this ends with me? I'm just a cog. You could walk away right now and no one would ever know." Rex growled, low and dangerous, stepping in front of Mia, his amber eyes locked on Harlow like a predator calculating distance. "You trained him well," Harlow said. "Loyal to the end, just like Axel." The name hit Mia like a punch. Axel, her first partner, the one she had buried. She felt the rage burn through the ache in her chest. "You injected him," she said. "You signed off on the false reports. You broke every oath we swore." Harlow's smile faded. "Axel was a liability. So is Rex. You know what has to be done." The SUV door opened. Another man stepped out, aiming a shotgun. Briggs cursed and opened fire, the shot sparking off the SUV's frame. Chaos erupted. Mia dove left, rolling behind a stack of crates as bullets tore through the pallets. Rex charged forward without hesitation, zigzagging low across the wet gravel. The shotgun boomed, but Rex was faster, slamming into the gunman's legs, knocking him flat. Mia surged from cover, firing twice. The gunman dropped, weapon skidding into the mud. Harlow ducked behind the SUV, returning fire with a sidearm. Briggs shouted something, but the roar of shots drowned him out. Mia sprinted closer, feeling splinters graze her shoulder. Harlow's rounds were wild now, desperate. Then, through the gunfire, a sharp, unmistakable bark cut through the air. Rex leapt onto the SUV's hood, bounding over the windshield, claws scraping metal. Harlow turned just as Rex launched, teeth clamping onto Harlow's gun arm. The weapon flew. They crashed to the ground, Harlow twisting, trying to reach a knife strapped to his boot. Mia didn't hesitate. She closed the distance and kicked the knife away, then leveled her gun at Harlow's chest. "It's over," she said, voice steady despite the adrenaline surging through her. Harlow glared up at her, breath heaving. "You think this changes anything? There are others. You'll never stop them all?" "Maybe not," Mia said, stepping closer. "But you won't hurt anyone else." Rex growled, tightening his grip just enough to make Harlow wince. Briggs moved in, cuffing the fallen captain, reading him his rights over the sound of distant sirens. The yard fell silent, except for Rex's steady panting and the faint hiss of rain on gravel. Mia knelt, wrapping her arms around Rex's neck, burying her face in his fur. "You did it," she whispered. "You finished what Axel started." Rex pressed his head against her shoulder, his tail giving a slow, proud wag. 2 weeks later, Clearwater Bay gathered at the newly dedicated K9 Memorial Park. The crowd stood beneath the crisp blue sky, facing a bronze statue of a German shepherd mid-stride. Mia stood at the podium, Rex at her side wearing a new badge on his collar. "Axel's watch," Mia began, her voice carrying over the crowd, "is not just a memorial. It is a promise. A promise that we will honor the loyalty and courage of those who protect us, even when they cannot speak for themselves. Rex is proof that justice can rise again, even when the world says hope is gone." The crowd applauded, some wiping tears. Briggs stood in the front row, his arm in a sling, nodding quietly. Carol held up a photograph of the rescued children, now safe and smiling. Mia looked down at Rex, who sat calmly, gaze fixed on the horizon. He was thought dead, but one bark broke the silence, and together we restored justice. She paused, letting the words settle. "If you believe in loyalty that never dies, in the courage of those who can't speak but still fight, then share this story. Tell someone about Rex, and if you want to honor every K9 out there still protecting us, join our community here. Subscribe to German Shepherd, leave your own stories of courage, and help us keep these heroes alive in memory and in action." Rex gave a single, proud bark. The crowd laughed and cheered, the sound rolling across the park like a tide of gratitude. Mia rested her hand on his head, feeling the steady heartbeat beneath the fur. Justice had been served, but more than that, a legacy had been reborn.